Hey everybody, welcome to the J&J Sports Express show for Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. We're already in week 5 of the NFL 2024 season. JB, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. What about you?
Hey, can't complain. But then again, who'd listen, right? I mean, this season and every season seems to be just like flying by. And every week, certain teams they deliver and certain teams fall flat on their face, right?
All the time. It's wild how that happens. That's why nobody's ever perfect.
That's for sure. These games, some of these games, even Tom Brady, I might have said it last week. He had a comment about how do you analyze these teams when one week they look good and the next week they look flat. Games they should be losing, they win, and games they should be winning, they lose. So, you know,
Really not easy.
I know. But all right, we got a whole slew of games this weekend, a few comments to talk about with different teams playing. And I guess let's get right to the schedule. Thursday night football. You got Tampa Bay +3 at Atlanta. Who you liking in this game, JB, and why?
It's a tough game. I mean, the Buccaneers are decent, and the Falcons have been playing weird. I'm not really too fond of the Falcons coaching. They have a lot of talent on the offensive side, and they don't seem to know how to use their toys. It's like a little kid that has like a toy that doesn't know how it works and just tries to bang it into the floor to maybe make it work. Um, but the Falcons are at home, and I think that gives them a slight advantage in this game. They won a tough game against the Saints last week. I see them coming back and winning this game. Bijan's a little banged up. I think that's going to hurt them a little bit, but they do have Algier back there that can pick up the slack. I this is an important game for this division because this division's up for grabs. Anybody can win it between the Falcons, Bucks, or Saints. So whoever wins this will have a good shot at sticking their neck out in front at the beginning. And I think the Falcons have a lot of nice little weapons on offense if they're used properly. Bucks are a decent team as well. Their defense hasn't been as good as I thought they'd be. Um, Baker's Baker. I just can't trust Baker Mayfield in a big game, and this is a big game for them. So I'm going to go with the Falcons -3 here.
I have to disagree with you on that because the Falcons, to me, I can't trust. Last week against New Orleans, they didn't have one offensive touchdown. They had the 4 field goals. They had to win it at the end on a pass interference play, a 58-yard field goal. Game could have gone either way. But the problem is that New Orleans gave Atlanta that game. They had a pick 6 from Derek Carr. They also had a fumble that was recovered in the end zone by Atlanta. Atlanta didn't get into the end zone by themselves. They had no offensive touchdowns. And then the week before against Kansas City, they had that game. They blew it. They played tough with Kansas City, and they just couldn't deliver. This team seems to fall flat on their face. Tampa Bay, on the other hand, they had a nice win against Philly last week. I liked Philly in that game because it was like revenge for what happened in the playoffs last season. Tampa Bay destroyed Philly 32-9. But the problem is that Philly still got that hangover from when they were 10-1. And Jalen Hurts is not showing anybody that he's worth the money he's getting. I like Tampa Bay in this game because I like Baker Mayfield has a lot of tools with him. The defense seems to play well. The Falcons, look, Kirk Cousins, you put pressure on him, he folds like a stack of cards. I'm not crazy about him, never was. He's not the kind of guy that's going to get you to the Super Bowl. He's the kind of guy that keeps the team competitive. But Atlanta's only winning because of help from other teams. They won on a last-second touchdown drive against Philly. They won last week on a last-second field goal against New Orleans. I don't feel comfortable with the Falcons being the favorite. I like Buccaneers, and this game could go down to a field goal at the end and end up for a push for everybody.
I hear you. It's going to be an interesting game. I think it's a good matchup to watch. At least it's a Thursday game that won't be horrible to watch on TV, like some of them that they put on there.
But okay. Next, we got the Sunday game from London. This is a big game here. New York Jets at the Vikings are the home team. The Jets are favorite at the time, plus minus 1.5, sometimes 2. This line has gone back and forth. But, when we looked at it, it was the Jets minus 1.5 versus the Vikings. Who do you like, JB, and why?
So, all things are not good in MetLife Stadium when Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh, there's something going on there. Rodgers does not respect them. If you looked at the press conference this week, the Jets had 5 full star penalties. Rodgers was asked about his cadence. Saleh said it's an issue. Rodgers says it's a weapon that he's used for many years. They're not on the same page. This team has a lot of offensive firepower. They're supposed to have a great defense, and it hasn't been there yet this year. They lost to a Denver team. They should have walked out the door. Meanwhile, Minnesota played last week. They were up huge, 28-0, and ended up winning the game 31-29 at the end. They kind of just played flat. They wanted to prevent defense and let Green Bay get all the way back into that game. But I can't for the life of me figure out how the Jets can be favored here. I like the Vikings. Both these teams on a neutral site. The Jets are in disarray as usual. Vikings are confident. They just go out there, play their game. They're not worried about what anybody thinks. And they're playing good football. And I think it's going to continue as they beat the Jets by a touchdown.
Well, I have to tell you, I agree with you, but there's so many different stories in this game. It's unbelievable. I will try to go through as many as possible. But number one, who is the Viking quarterback at this time? It is Sam Darnold, originally drafted by the New York Jets. So there's a story within a story. You have a guy who was basically discarded from the team that drafted him. He's playing well right now. He would love to take it to Robert Saleh and the Jets. So there's motivation right there for any team to like the Vikings. And I'm sure the rest of his teammates are rallying around that one. Then you got the Jets on the other side. Aaron Rodgers looks like he's 150 years old right now. I said to a lot of people that his last season in Green Bay, he was terrible. He wasn't playing vintage Aaron Rodgers. Plus the year off last year, you say it saved the body. You get older in football. And if you don't play, it wears on you. And Aaron Rodgers' ego, unfortunately, is as big as MetLife Stadium. And Robert Saleh himself, he's not that good of a coach. He's not a good head coach. The problem with him is he's the kind of guy that needs superstars to really have a team that's going to go anywhere. If you look at the San Francisco 49ers when he was the defensive coordinator, before he took the helm of the Jets, that team was stacked on defense. A robot could have been the defensive coordinator on that team, and they still would have done well. I'm not very confident about Robert Saleh. He makes a lot of excuses for why the team doesn't win. But at the end of the day, it's him and him only that has to answer why the team did what it did on the field. I love Denver plus 7.5 last week because they have an underrated defense that a lot of teams take for granted. Their offense, yes, is not the greatest in the world, but a defense that holds Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is 40 years old. He's not 30. Big difference in the NFL, and he plays like it. He should be calling the plays out there. The hell with the offensive coordinator. He's showing everybody he's not calling the plays. Because if he was calling the plays, he would call the plays, they would win. Plain and simple. The Jets are in big-time disarray. I don't see them getting it together because of the travel all the way to London. The Vikings, look, last week, I liked the Vikings plus 2 at Green Bay. They did have the 28-0 lead at the time, and they kind of squandered it. They made some suspect calls. They had a turnover. But all in all, Aaron Jones had a very good day. And his comeback that I said last week, he was going to I thought he was going to run for 150 yards. He still ran for like 90-something yards, which, it's not a bad day. And they did end up winning, so I was happy about that. I like Minnesota big in this game. I think, they definitely win by at least 10 points. The Jets are going nowhere as usual, and they're going to clean house after the season. And that's how I see it.
Real quick with the Jets, do you think they go after Devontae Adams?
At this point, it's the coaching that's the problem with the Jets, Robert Saleh and the rest of the gang. You know what? If I'm Devontae Adams, this team's going nowhere. Why would you want to join a bunch of losers? You want, Devontae Adams, he's asking for a trade. Look, you signed the contract, play it out.
That's not how it works.
The Saints are very interested in him, and I think that's a better situation than the Jets, to be honest with you.
I hear you, but I mean, he wants to go to play with Aaron or Derek. Those are his two top spots.
At this point, I would go with Derek because Derek's younger and they have a better, well-rounded team. New Orleans has
I agree with you.
Better defense, and Aaron Rodgers is at the end of his rope. And they're not making the Super Bowl because nobody's getting past Kansas City in the AFC.
No, I agree, but it'd be interesting to see if the Jets make that move because, you know what, if you're the GM right now, if this is the way your team's going to play, you're not going to be there next year. Make the trade. You got nothing to lose. But
That's it. But the Raiders already won a second-round draft choice. They're already asking for that, and I'm sure it gets a lot steeper once you start talking.
Oh yeah, but you know what? You're not going to be there next year anyway, so that pick don't make a difference to you if you're the GM. The only way you're going to be there is if you win. So, but let's move on. We got Bills at Texans. You want to lead off with this one?
All right. I like Buffalo in this game. Big bounce back after that big loss on Sunday night against Baltimore. There was momentum in that game. If you saw it, Baltimore was winning 21-10 and Buffalo was driving. And then they started to get cute. And then they fumbled the ball and Baltimore turned around, went the other way with a drive with a touchdown. Game was over there. Instead of 21-17, it ended up being 28-10. And it ended up being 35-10, and that was it. Buffalo, made a lot of mistakes in there. They couldn't stop Derrick Henry. The defense basically 87-yard run on the first play for Baltimore. Nobody even touched them. Nobody even threatened them. They got to shore up that defense. Houston, they had to have a comeback win against Jacksonville. They punted 5 times in the second half versus Jacksonville, for Christ's sakes. I mean, please. I mean, this team is terrible. The team's going nowhere. Trevor Lawrence is not playing the way he should be. And Houston needed a last drive touchdown to beat Jacksonville at home. I mean, that's pretty bad. Houston is a very good team. They're still missing Joe Mixon. I don't see him coming back this weekend against Buffalo. Houston is not there yet. If you're struggling against teams like Jacksonville and you get blown out by Minnesota, you're not really at that tier yet where teams can, fear you. Buffalo, look, they can beat you so many different ways. All of a sudden, the defense shows up. This is a big bounce back game for Buffalo, and I love Buffalo. Josh Allen's going to rebound, and I like Buffalo in this game, beating Texans in Texas.
So I got to agree with you with the bounce back. Probably the best thing that could have happened to Buffalo was they played a little flat. They got their butts handed to them. Because they weren't going perfect. They're going to have losses along the way. They're a good team. They're not a great team. So having that loss to a good team is going to settle them down. It's going to refocus them. And they were world beaters the first couple of weeks. They had no issues with anybody. The Ravens put them back down to earth. So they're going to go back to work. They're going to go to Houston. They're going to go out there and they're going to beat the snot out of the Texans this week. Now, you say the Texans had to have a comeback and they shouldn't have to. It's the NFL, unfortunately. Any team can play good any 1 week. It's a division game.
Right. But the Jags are terrible, JB.
They are, but it's a division game.
Jags are terrible. And Trevor Lawrence wasn't exactly.
You know how division games go. Division games are totally different than anything else. You know the team so well. Weird things happen. On paper, if they were in different divisions, the Texans probably win that game by 10. But because they play twice a year, both teams know each other. It makes it a lot more difficult to go out there and run something different and run it down their throats. So I'm not too upset that they had to come back like that against the Jags. But I think Buffalo is just a better team at the moment. The Texans are still on their way up. Buffalo's at its peak. It's not going to get any better than they are right now unless they do a complete overhaul. Their defense is not there. Their offense, this is the best it's going to be unless it's a complete overhaul. So, I think for them, they're just a better team at the moment. Well, the Texans are on their way up and they still have, a ceiling that they haven't reached yet. They'll get there, but it won't be this year. And, the Bills were bouncing back after a tough loss. Going to go into Houston and take the game. But, I think it's going to be a close game. It's a 1-point spread. I think the Bills obviously will cover. I don't think it's going to be a 1-point game where it'll be a push. but it'll be an enjoyable game to watch. That's for sure. But I don't see the Texans being able to beat them, especially if Mixon's still out. That's a big part of their offense. It takes pressure off C.J. Stroud to have that good back there. I mean, he can do it by himself, but it just changes the defensive look. When you have a running back that keeps the defense honest, it opens up the passing game.
Totally. If you have a running back, by the way, that can get you 70 yards a game, then you have something. If you can't rush for at least 70 or 75 yards, the defense is just going to tee off on the quarterback.
Yeah, it changes the whole outlook, and the whole scheme. So I completely agree with you. That's a big loss if he can't play. Even with them, though, I still don't think they win. I still like Buffalo here, but I think it'll be probably one of the better games to watch during the week.
And then we go to I totally agree with you. Sunday night football, the Cowboys at the Steelers. The Steelers are -2.5. You want to go first?
So the Cowboys coming off a long rest after a miserable performance against the Giants, 20-15. Steelers just doing what the Steelers do. Mike Tomlin, this game's going to come down to coaching. Cowboys on paper have way more talent than the Steelers, but they have a deficit of the coaching staff. Zimmer is not a good defensive coordinator. He has all the tools on that defense, and their defense is banged up after the Giant game. But they have all those tools there. He doesn't know how to use them. Again, like I said earlier, with the Falcons, the kid with the toy banging it doesn't know how to play with it. That's Mike Zimmer with that defense. And now they're all banged up and hurt, against Mike Tomlin and the Steelers with, Justin Fields playing quarterback. All of a sudden, he's really good. He's doing just what they need to do to win. And, the Cowboys are not going to win this game. This game's in prime time, and we're going to see why Mike Tomlin is the best coach in the NFL. Does he have the most talent? Nobody gets the most out of his talent. That says a lot about a coach. And that's why the Steelers are going to win this game.
I have to agree with you that the Steelers are going to win the game, but for different reasons. Cowboys looked horrible. I will agree with you on that. They looked horrible against the Giants. They only won by 5. Spread, when we talked about it, was 4.5. It went up to 5.5. Cowboys have guys that are injured. You got Micah Parsons, he's out. You got DeMarcus Lawrence, he's out. Ezekiel Elliott looks like, he's done. But they have no running game, and the team just can't do anything. And Jerry Jones keeps trying to think that he's the genius in Texas, and he's not. And giving Dak Prescott that extension and CeeDee Lamb is a big mistake. And now they have no reason to even win. They're lackadaisical. This team may not even make the playoffs. Then what's he going to do? He's stuck with Dak. He's stuck with all these guys. Should have let him play out their options. Cowboys are not the same team. Dak Prescott, forget it. The defense is terrible. Stop the comparisons of Michael Parsons with LT already. Enough is enough. Michael Parsons isn't half the player that LT was. LT could do it all. Michael Parsons goes after the quarterback here and there, and that's it. The Steelers last week, they kind of disappointed me. I had the Steelers big in Indy, and they did the job, but they knocked out Anthony Richardson. And who comes in? Joe Flacco. And he knows how to beat the Steelers. Okay, he comes in there. He's like flawless Flacco. Throws 2 touchdowns. Pittsburgh didn't have the answer. They were ready for Anthony Richardson. I think if Anthony Richardson had stayed in the game, Pittsburgh would have won the game. No question in my mind, because Anthony Richardson can't throw the ball. He's the first, his first thought is run the ball, and that's going to get him consistently injured in the NFL. The Steelers are coming off the bounce back. I like what they do. I like Mike Tomlin as a head coach. He's very smart. He knows how to play. TJ Watt's going to be all over Dak Prescott. They're going to stop the run and put it all on Dak Prescott's shoulders come Sunday night. There's a nice big home game. Steelers should run the ball over the Cowboys. Cowboys can't stop the run either. So you get Najee Harris and a couple of other guys just getting going. Takes a lot of pressure off Justin Fields. And last week, listen, Steelers couldn't, only lost by 3, but they couldn't get in position to kick that field goal. They just needed a little more oomph, and they would have got down the field, and Indy was psyched. And who knows who's the quarterback in Indy this week? It could be Joe Flacco again. But I certainly like the Steelers winning by at least 3, 4, 5. maybe even 7 against the Cowboys. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I'd be very surprised if the Steelers do blow out the Cowboys, but I do see the Steelers winning the game outright and covering the 2.5-point spread.
Monday night, Saints at Chiefs, -5 for the Chiefs. Now, I'll start with this one. Chiefs lose another receiver, another offensive player, Rashee Rice, toward, I believe it was ACL. I could be wrong. It could be an MCL, but I think it was an ACL. Most likely out for the year. Travis Kelce looks lost.
Well, Travis Kelce had a good game on Sunday against the Chargers.
He still looks lost. He's not himself. He's definitely aged, and I'm not going to say it's a distraction that's causing him to play different. I think he's aged. He's not the same guy he was 2-3 years ago. That doesn't mean he can't be helpful, and he's going to be a bigger part of the offense now that there's less pieces there with Rice out. They got through it with the injury to
Hollywood Brown is out.
Yeah, Hollywood Brown. They got through that. They got through Pacheco's injury.
And
they were okay.
Also. But now they got Kareem Hunt. And
Kareem Hunt back there, which is a decent piece. He's not what he was years ago, but he knows the offense, and it gives him somebody better than Steele. Steele was not the answer. They played him that first week. He's not a bad kid, but he's not Pacheco. He doesn't have that flash of speed. It doesn't give him that safety outlet that Mahomes could throw to, where Hunt will give that to him. The Saints, they're having a nice little season. They surprised us a lot. But I don't see the Chiefs covering here with the way this offense is. I think the Saints will keep it close. The Chiefs are going to win, but I can't see the Chiefs covering a 5-point spread against the Saints at this point with all the injuries to that offense.
I like the Chiefs. I like Mahomes. I like the fact that last week against the Chargers, he was down 10-0 and he turned it around. And the Chiefs defense all of a sudden is really coming together. They're very good against the run, and they're figuring it out against the pass, even with L'Jarius Sneed, who's gone. Okay, they filled the gap. They know how to get to the pass rusher. Chris Jones is over there. He's doing his job. The defense is unbelievable with the Chiefs. And Mahomes, listen, the spread was 7 last week. They pushed, but they know how to win. The Saints, on the other hand, Derek Carr, again, we spoke about the Saints last week against Atlanta earlier in the program. The Saints defense was very good last week. The problem was the offense, and they gave away a touchdown. The Saints didn't give up a offensive touchdown to Atlanta, but they eventually lost the game. And they also lost to Philadelphia at the end of the game because they ran into each other and gave up a 60-yard run and a pass. And, they got their own problems. Plus, you got Derek Carr. If the Chiefs put pressure on Derek Carr, I can guarantee he's going to turn the ball over. And that's what's going to happen this week. If I'm Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm putting as much pressure as I possibly can on Derek Carr and making him make mistakes, because eventually he's going to throw the ball the wrong way. It's going to be up there in the air. Somebody's going to turn around and take it and run the other way. As for Travis Kelce, he's money. He still had a nice big game against the Chargers. As long as you got Mahomes, you have a superstar. People catch the ball, and he runs when he needs to. And I see the Chiefs covering this game by 7 points. I see them winning. I see them being at home. They're fine. They're 4-0. They're going to be 5-0 after this week. They know how to win. They don't. They might not be flashy and blowing teams out, but they do what they have to do. And off the what?
What's their record against the spread?
I think it's 3-1
against the spread. Wow.
Yep. The only game they lost was against the Bengals.
Okay.
Oh, it's 2-1-1 because the last week was a push.
Okay. Interesting.
So, I see the Chiefs. You got Mahomes. He knows what to do. I love it on Monday night. I think Kansas City's going to give New Orleans a run for the money. New Orleans has a good team, but they got to stop that run. Stop Alvin Kamara. Put it all on Derek Carr's shoulders. He'll make mistakes. Chiefs will win the game by at least 7.
Well, we disagree on that. Well, we disagree on a few as usual, which is good. Keeps everything honest.
Couple of things. Philly has totally disappointed. They're definitely like hitting rock bottom over there, losing to Tampa Bay the way they did. This team is in disarray. Jalen Hurts, not the same guy he was when they went to the Super Bowl. He's turnover city right now. He's turning,
Starts with the coaching, though. Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator is horrible. Sirianni's a bad coach. They don't know how to use Barkley. You go back to the New Orleans game. They didn't hand the ball off to Barkley one time in the first quarter. And, by the time they started using him, I think he had 12 carries for like 100 and something yards. They could have won that game easy instead of, having to win on the end of it.
Sirianni got rid of the OC and the DC, and now it's all his. So now he's got nobody to blame. And Philly, is going backwards. And, last week I liked Carolina, Andy Dalton against Cincinnati. Problem is that nobody told Cincinnati that. And Cincinnati was in a desperation. It was a desperation versus Andy Dalton taking it to Cincinnati. And Cincinnati won on desperation because they couldn't start the season 0-4 and think they were going to make the playoffs. Carolina showed who they were. Andy Dalton still had a nice day, but the defense for Carolina couldn't stop anybody. And that was part of the problem. And there's a lot of teams that, Washington is a great story right now with Jaden Daniels. They're playing lights out. Dan Quinn, who's the coach there, he's a defensive guy. So, I knew they were going to take it to Arizona last week. Arizona's like a lot of flub. They kept Kyler Murray in the pocket, and he only had one run for 3 yards. Because if you let him get outside the pocket and start running, it's over. He'll get the first down. He'll get yards. He'll put the defense on their back. And instead, Dan Quinn was smart. He probably had a spotter. I didn't see the whole game, but I didn't see Kyler Murray taking off like he usually does. And that was good for Washington.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing good football. Daniels is playing well. Just got to be careful with him running so much. You don't need him to get hurt. I mean, you see that happening with Richardson. Historically, it happened to RG3. So if you're the Commanders, you really got to be careful with that. It's something that's got to be in the back of your mind. Protect him at all costs. I look at these young quarterbacks that can run, and I want them taught, look for the pass first. The only time you should be running is when a play is broken down. You shouldn't be looking to run first unless it's a cold run. That's completely different. If it's a quarterback run call, go ahead and run. Otherwise, you shouldn't be taken off until the play is broken down. You should be looking to pass first when you're back there, and take your time, as much time as the line gives you. There's no hurry because, these guys can play and one bad hit and that's it. Richard's out again after that hit. He missed how much time last year? Granted, he hasn't been the greatest quarterback, but if you're not on the field, you can't improve.
That's right.
Anything else going on? We didn't mention with the Bills, the suspension.
Oh,
Do you think
Miller
makes a big difference in the game?
No, he wasn't even in the game really last week. He's been a non-issue with Buffalo since he's been there. He's just been collecting a paycheck and really hasn't made any kind of impact on the team. I don't think I really think he's past his prime and just kind of collecting. And it really doesn't, I don't think he's been doing much. He suits up, but he's not playing that much.
Interesting. Listen, I mean, it's going to be a fun week. We're starting our overseas tour with the Jets and Vikings. The NFL seems to find ways to play games all over. We get to wake up early to watch football, so that'll be fun. I want to see a game as good as the Detroit-Seattle game every week. I want to see competitive football on Thursday, Sunday night, and Monday nights. Let's hope it happens. It was a fun watch Monday night, but where can people find you?
You can find me on my website at jeffcadillac.com. You can find me here on Twitter with on my best bet of the week every Friday at Jeff Cadillac 1 and every Wednesday night with you on the J&J Sports Express on Twitter and wherever else it's posted.
So J.B. the program JB underscore the program on X. SidelineSportsNet.com is the website. And make sure you go to both those. Subscribe to the YouTube. We'll see you guys next Wednesday. And don't forget Sideline Sports Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Anything to say before we go, Jeff?
Hey, everybody, have a good week, and hopefully the games are exciting.